The other day, I got a comment on one of my videos. It was brilliant. Obviously, a lot of my videos, all my videos, my channel's dedicated to Kundalini awakening. And the comment was, Kundalini rises out the top of the head and that's it. Or it was something like that. I can't remember the exact phrase. It wasn't that important. I just thought it was so funny. It just shows the unfortunate ignorance there is today around Kundalini. So let's dive a little deeper. Unfortunately, there's this thing that's come out recently called Kundalini activation, where it's an energy that flows through the body, and most of them people have it entirely wrong. What people think they're receiving as Kundalini energy is just pranic. Some people aren't even receiving it. Yes, unfortunately, I have people come to me more often than I'd like, and they say, oh, I've been given entities by some facilitator. And it's like, okay, it's probably more likely that that facilitator didn't know what they were doing and they weren't giving you anything. They were pulling your energy rather than pushing or connecting to energy. And so it almost felt like you were being violated energetically. Therefore, you interpret that, because you have no basis on this, because you've never experienced it, as though you're having entities put into you type of thing, because it could almost feel like that. So let's just start very simply. One of the main things we have to look at when it comes to Kundalini is, obviously we can go down the Egyptian path, but the Egyptian path, most of the information has been lost for thousands of years. Therefore, we go down the scriptures that we have access to, the knowledge we have access to that is still alive today. This will come from Tantra, because Kundalini is part of Tantra. Where does it come from in Tantra? Kashmir Shaivism, or Shaivism, is one of the best places. We've got the sutras, we've got... Now, some people say, hang on, but that's a form of non-dualistic reality. How do we know that one's true rather than Advaita Veda? Oh, we'll make another video on that one, because that is very interesting. That is it a particle or is it a wave type of thing? Two sides to non-duality. I know. You just got to love that one. But let's look at Shaivism. Kashmir, it's Kashmiri, it's got lots of names, you can pronounce it slightly differently. The main aspects of this thing, whatever it is, we're talking for beginners here, okay? People that have no knowledge of Tantra or anything like that, or they think Tantra's to do with sex, and it's like, it's just not. One of the main parts of Shaivism are the 36 Tattvas, which is actually quite interesting. 36? It's a little bit too many, but okay, we can work out why. But it's sort of like each one is a vertebra. They've just added in a couple too many, which then suddenly relates to many things. But let's go through the Tattvas, not in a yogic way, in a very basic English language way. And we're going to work bottom up. Got a list here to make sure I don't miss any, because knowing me, I would miss some. So we have, of these 36 Tattvas, we start with the 5 gross elements. What are the 5 gross elements? Well, they are water, earth, fire, air, and ether or space. Does anything need to be said about those? Oh, well, yes, you do. What about the 5 elements of the Chinese systems? What about just if we want to, we can get stuck in the 5 gross elements as a philosophy for generations. But what happens if we literally just take the 5 gross elements as earth, water, fire, air, and ether or space? Solid, the liquid, the gas, earth, water, air, fire, the thing that destroys them, space or ether. We could almost describe that as when we create a void or a vacuum. Let's keep it simple. Then we move up to the 5 subtle elements. 5 subtle elements. What are they? Sound, touch, form, taste, smell. But they're not the subtle elements. They're just the senses. Well, yeah, same thing. Each of those, we could say, has its clair related to it. Yes. But again, let's not go into these things. Let's just keep going, because there's the 5 subtle elements. We then have the 5 cognitive senses and the 5 organs of action, which fit with these. So the 5 subtle elements: sound, touch, form, taste, smell. The 5 cognitive senses: hearing with the ears, touch with the skin, sight with the eyes, taste with the tongue, smell with the nose. Yeah? These things fit together perfectly, right? We then have the 5 organs of action. Speech being the voice, grasping the hands, touching the hands, motion or locomotion, the feet, excretion, the excretion organs, and reproduction, the genitals. That is how humans work, right? With the 5 cognitive senses, 5 organs of action, and the 5 subtle elements. They all fit in very nicely. Someone has sat down and observed how we work in a very materialistic manner, right? Once we realize these things, those tattvas are pretty straightforward, right? So now we get into the slightly higher level. Intellect. So we have the inner psychic instruments. We mentioned subtle before. The inner psychic elements. Intellect. Is intellect psychic? Well, it's psychological, yeah, as in psychic. Intellect, the facility of discernment. Or intellect, bad intellect, the external that has programmed us, causing to think we know. Ego, the sense of individuality. Or ego, the thing that creates me being better than everything else. Program. Mind, the coordinator of sensory input, or the thing that shuts us off to receiving. The first thing is the tattva. The problem is what we have. The ore is what we have. So again, we're just looking at these things very, very simply. We have the intellect. With intellect, we have the possibility of discernment, but most people don't. Most people run a program based on beliefs given to them from external sources. Ego, the sense of individuality. To be able to be an observer, but most people are stuck in ego as an individual program, not looking out, but holding themselves in a place of protection and survival. This is where we go to when we look at the chakras: fear, desire, egoic ideologies. That's why we have to release those things, because when we release those things, we suddenly see what the ego is. And the ego is a sense of individuality to be able to gain the perspective of the observer. How it doesn't work, how it works. Then we have the mind, the coordinator of sensory input. Most people don't coordinate that stuff. It just happens to them, and they are the product of it. You have to realize what's going on. You have to become the observer. You have to understand that your monkey mind, everything that's said within your monkey mind, isn't yours. You have to understand that nothing of this that goes on in you is yours. That's all external programming, and shut it down to be able to do these things. We move on. I'm only using names in English. I'm not using the Indian names. Yeah. The individual soul and nature. We're going higher. We're stepping up. The individual soul, bound by Maya. We'll get to Maya in a bit. Maya is the principle of illusion. So it is the individual soul bound by the principle of illusion, created by what we were just talking about, right? In part. Primordial nature, the source of the material world. See how these things are starting to fit together? If you don't, write in a comment below and I will try and answer you. Or even come to our free group sessions and ask. Yeah. I hold free group sessions once a month online. Come ask me there if you're not sure. So we go higher. Again, I'm only talking about these things basically. I could go into every single one of these principles for hours on end, but we're just looking at the overview here. We are the observer of these things to see how they fit together here. Impure principles, illusion, and limitations. Limited action or capacity. Yeah. We have to realize that people are very limited. We can become the observer, become less limited. We're still limited. We can still only go to sixth dimensional capacity. The human mind cannot go beyond the sixth dimension. Anyone that sells you anything at seventh dimension or ninth dimension doesn't know what they're talking about, because we literally can't go higher than the sixth dimension. We are limited. So then limited knowledge and partial understanding. Again, that's everyone. We don't have access to everything until we connect to Shiva. This is the problem until we get there. Limitation of desire, creating attachment. Oh, Did I not mention desire earlier? Have I not mentioned desire in earlier previous videos? Fear, desire, ego. Limitations of causality, restricting freedom. I'm just going to finish here. Limitation of time, creating sequential experience, and the principle of illusion, Maya, we mentioned this before, causing differentiation and limitation. So we are limited by action and capacity. We are limited by knowledge through only partial understanding. We are limited by desire, creating attachment. We are limited by causality, restricting our freedoms. We are limited by time, creating sequential experience. And we are limited by the principle of illusion, causing differentiation. These are very, very simple ideas. We are limited by our actions. If we just receive information from the external and we do not work, we do not connect to Shakti, we do not connect to Shiva, we are always going to be limited. We're not going to understand. This is the whole point of Kundalini awakening. Again, I get asked questions, oh, but Kundalini only goes so far. It's not full non-dualism, etc. It's like, it's the path to it. And once you fully connect, you will understand. If you think it doesn't go as far as other systems, then you haven't gone deep enough or you're listening to the wrong person. Limited knowledge, partial understanding. Well, yeah, until we see the whole picture, we're always going to be limited, aren't we? Limitation of desire, creating attachment. We've got to release those desires, right? Because they create attachment. Blue pill, red pill. Who's going to take? Lovely movie, The Matrix. Who's going to take the red pill? Who's going to leave everything they actually have here and now in this world? Leave every single thing they have behind. Who's going to do it? Yeah? The others, restricting your freedom, causality. If you haven't quite seen the pattern here, go back. So let's move on. Go back. I'll go over them again. Watch the video again if you need to. Think about these things. Contemplate these things. It's so obvious why we have these tattvas, how everything connects from the gross elements at the bottom going higher. Let's go higher. So we just had the impure principles of illusion and limitation. Now we have the pure, impure principles of limited individuality. The will of consciousness, where the sense of I am begins. We all know that famous sentence, I am. But yes, whilst I am is a limitation in itself. The creative power, where the sense of this emerges. This, I am, this. The pure knowledge of the balance of I and this. I am this. This I am. Balance of the two. And it is a fine balance. Starts to create pure knowing, pure knowledge. Starts to break down the principles of illusion. Starts to break down the limitations of time in ways you might not believe. Starts to break down the limitations of causality, the limitation of desire, the limitations of knowledge, and the limitations of action. Simply those principles. I, this, finding the balance between the two. That leads us to the final two. Those were the easy bits that anyone can do through simple meditation, contemplation, non-dual philosophy. And those things, basically, what we've covered, sum up the entirety of philosophy. Very powerful stuff. This comes from over 1,000 years ago, thousands of years ago, nearly. Hundreds of years ago, centuries of knowledge here. Some would say it goes even further, but from when we know we can date this back to, that doesn't mean to say it's where it started, it's where Kashmir Shaivism started, but it doesn't mean to say that some guy suddenly sat down and imagined all this. These things tend to take time. So that covers the whole of philosophy, and we can go very deep. And you can see all the meditations, all the Western ideas, all of them cover these lower aspects. So then we get to the top two. This is where we get to Kundalini. Because Kundalini has two parts. An awakening is not any energy healing. An awakening is Shakti, rising, connecting to Shiva, right? So what are the top two? Number two is Shakti. Let's just use this definition for the minute. The dynamic power of consciousness, the creative energy. Shakti is energy. Shakti and Shiva is not masculine energy and feminine energy and nonsense. Shakti is energy. Pranic energy. It's not chi. It is a cosmic energy. It's not universal, vital life force energy, chi prana. It is a cosmic level of energy. It is different frequency. It's like sound and light. Different frequency of energy. When, in our experience, in our capability to understand these things, when Shakti rises up the spine, it connects us. That's a rising experience. So most people who talk about having Kundalini awakening experiences, they're talking about energy, possibly energy rising up the spine. Well, they're talking about energy rising up the spine. There's no possibility about it, assuming they're not just joining the crowd and saying they had that because they had a breakdown, life crisis, which a lot of them are. But then we have energy rising up the spine. Now, energy rising up the spine can be pranic energy, which can cause, it can force you to have a breakdown. It can force you to have a life crisis. Prana. Because it is your energy, as prana activates in the body, it goes through, it breaks the blocks, it heals. And if you're not ready and you fight back with your ego, that's when all these problems occur that these people talk about. When pranic energy flows through the body, wants to release, and they fight back with the ego. The Shakti energy comes from the root chakra, rises up the spine, connects out the top of the head, goes up, connects to Shiva, to pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, the ultimate reality, descends. We have the descent of grace, connecting back down, goes into us, all the way down, down the Sushumna, connects with the linga of Shakti, the pillar of Jed, where the energy is rolled around, connected around, coiled around 3 times. Shiva, coiled like a snake, round the linga of Shiva. If we look at non-dualistic philosophy, there is Atman, there is Brahman, depending on the system we use. Brahman and Atman are the same thing. One doesn't go further than the other. All roads lead to Rome. Obviously, not all roads lead to Rome, because some will drive you into a dead end and can't get you any further. People that don't know, this happens all the time. We talked about this, primary school teachers cannot give you the information to earn yourself a PhD. They might sell themselves as though they can, and they can't. But that's not the fault of the system, that's the fault of the person. People talk about Kundalini activation being Kundalini, and it's not, it's just prana. That's the fault of the teacher as opposed to a system. Because Kundalini awakening is something that can happen. They're not doing it, they're just telling you they are. It's like snake oil salesman, isn't it? It sounds terrible to say that, but I prefer to say it sounds like a primary school teacher trying to give you a PhD. It doesn't work. Some people say to me, but why doesn't that really annoy you? Why doesn't it? Because we need primary school teachers and we need PhD university professors. We need, car mechanics that can change your oil, change your oil, change your oil, change your oil, and change everybody's oil. But we also need mechanics that can do far more intricate and complicated stuff. We need these things. Have you ever taken your car to a garage and been possibly ripped off, or they haven't done what they're supposed to do, or this happens everywhere, or tried to take your computer to be fixed and they didn't fix the problem? These things happen everywhere. People tend to pick it out in spiritual terms and someone did this to me, and that unfortunately it does happen, but it happens everywhere. These tattvas, these are the basis for Kundalini. As I said, the first ones are the basis of all Western philosophy and most of Eastern philosophy, until we get to the non-dualistic. Once we have gone through all of those, I've spoken about in other videos, the chakras, how we have to overcome things. I cross-referenced it slightly here in the video. Desire, ego. Trying to make these things simple for you. If you don't understand, I can go into things deeper, write it down below. Can you go through this a bit more? Fine. Some people say, oh, you've simplified this. That's the point. I've simplified this to such a simplistic point that hopefully anyone can see it. How we interact in the world. How mentally we interact in the world. How we figure things out. How we can be entrapped by that or freed by it. People understand ego is bad. Ego is negative. Ego is... We have to kill the ego. Death to the ego. No. Again, wrong. That is misinterpretation. Ego is our friend. Ego is the thing that is there to keep us safe. The ego is there to keep us safe. The ego is that thing, if it's working correctly, is the thing that spots the lion in the savannah and tells us to run. Ego is the thing that says you're getting too close to that cliff and it's very windy. The problem is ego is misunderstood. And we, due to the external program of the society we live in, and we don't understand what ego is, we try and fight the ego rather than embracing the ego. Whilst we fight the ego, whilst we try and prove ourselves to our ego, greed, jealousy, all the things that create hell on earth come from lack of self-confidence, trying to prove ourselves to our own egos that have been programmed by external things. If we release those external things, understand our ego is our friend, it's just trying to protect us, it's just being given bad information externally, then we can take the position of the observer and everything opens up. I've been going for half an hour now. You might need to watch this a couple of times. I've run through the list. I've made comments briefly on everything. Simple ideas. I hope this helps. Click that subscribe button, that like button, leave a comment, ask a question. If it's a long question, as I said, perhaps come to a group session, go to theawakenedenergy.com. I hold free group sessions once a month. They are light body activation sessions, but I also open the floor up to people who wish to ask questions. Or if it's a really long one, perhaps I can actually turn it into another video for you to go into it a bit deeper. If you ask me a really complex thing, the whole idea of this channel is to simplify things, so I'm not going to start debating intricacies of yogic philosophies that need PhDs and you need to know all the language. Like there, I haven't used any of the names from the Hindu names because they're not that important. We don't need to have a new set of linguistic skills to be able to do this. But yeah, ask those questions. Perhaps share the video. Perhaps watch this a couple of times. I'll see you in another video.